Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much love to talk with you about a recent release made by the Criterion Collection during this year, 2020. And this release is given the spine number 1031. This is from the year 2018 from the filmmaker Paul Dano, and the film is called Wildlife. From 2018, from director Paul Dano, with a screenplay that is credited to Paul Dano and Zoe Kazan. This stars Carey Mulligan and Ed Oxenbould and Bill Camp and Jake Gyllenhaal, and this is based on the book by Richard Ford. This is the film Wildlife, again from 2018, so a very recent film. What an interesting, remarkable, quietly profound, and quietly powerful work, a very arresting, affecting work that has a very, and I mean this in a good way, a very slow, methodical pace to it that builds in a way that is almost imperceptible and invisible, and that gives us a human tapestry, if you will, of characters whose motivations are never two-dimensional. The motivations of all these characters are always three-dimensionally realized, in that they always seem to be grounded in a sense of realism or understandability. To put it another way, this film is about relationships, and about the relationships in a family, and in particular the relationships that occur between husband and wife from the viewpoint of the child in that family, and what happens when those dynamics change given certain circumstances that present themselves in the narrative, and how therefore the dynamics between husband and wife changing affects the dynamics that exist between parents and children, and in particular mother and son. And also this film is about a search for identity and the means by which these people in this particular setting, and how this is a film where we have characters that are searching for something about themselves. Maybe they have lost, maybe it's a sense of human dignity, maybe it's a sense of purpose in one's life, maybe it's a sense of trying to establish or reestablish one's sense of masculinity in this world, or femininity in this world, and how that forms a key component in one's identity, not just with respect to the relationships that can be had with the people around us, the people that we meet, and also the core people in our family, but also the way in which that affects our perceptions of ourselves, and what that means therefore going forward in the constant change of dynamic in the family relationships that are at the very center of this film. And with that in mind, I think this film is therefore filled with a lot of characterizations that are never in any way two-dimensionally realized. I think this film has at its core the characterizations that are always understandable and approachable. And thus, we never have any villains in this film. We never have any characters that are automatically portrayed as being outward villains or bad people. We have people here. We have living, breathing human beings here, all of them. And they all have their good points. They all have their not so good points. They are human beings. And the surprises that this film has when it's presenting us with these characterizations of real sensitivity and heart and a quiet, almost a quiet nobility and resignation, I think is one of the driving forces as to what makes this film as powerful and as dynamic and as really emotionally robust as it is. This is a film that really takes its time in a very pure and yet focused way, and when it hits its emotional beats, those emotional beats really rock one conscious, and I think they also shake us at our very foundations, and they also resonate, and they echo, and they really echo in a way that makes one realize how this film is not just a story to be told through the visual medium of cinema, but it's also a story that is about family. And it has, therefore, a sense of the universal, namely the way in which this portrayal of this particular family and the relationships between the family members, the child, the son, and the mother and the father, how this is very affecting, because it's not only a story about their lives, but in many ways it is a way in which we as viewers can see how this kind of family dynamic touches us in one way or another. And therefore I find this film to be one that has so many emotionally resonant, impacting scenes that are quite moving, and they really show a trusting sense of a directorial eye and a cinematic artistry that is at work here. And so it's a really splendid addition to the Criterion Collection. This is the film Wildlife, so Paul Dano's film Wildlife at spine number 1031. And so what we have here is the Blu-ray, which is purported to be based off of the new 2K digital master. And so it's a great looking presentation, and there is a certain visual sense about the film that I think this presentation captures very well. And so there is a sort of a quiet serenity about the film that is told in many ways through its controlled visual imagery, and I think the presentation here gives us that sense in a very clear and precise way. So it's a lovely presentation in my opinion. But when we talk about the Criterion Collection release, what do we have here? We have a number of supplements that accompany this very remarkable film. And so what are they? So first we have a supplement which is called From Script to Screen, and this is a Criterion produced supplement from 2020, and this is approximately 25 minutes, and this features Paul Dano and Zoe Kazan, and the two of them are talking about essentially the genesis of this film and how Paul Dano initially became attracted to the story and to the subject matter, his interactions with the Richard Ford work, and how he therefore tried to form the idea that would then crystallize into a working script, which then he would work with together with Zoe Kazan. And to hear his recollections of the genesis of this film is very interesting, because you can tell the care and the loving feelings that he has towards the subject matter. He really respects the subject matter. He knows the subject matter because he gives it a lot of heart and strength of heart, and you can really tell this in the comments that he gives in his interview. So that's really wonderful. And Zoe Kazan as well, her comments I think really show a close and very intimate understanding, not only of how Paul Dano as an artist works, but also the subject matter itself and the characters that occupy this world. Zoe Kazan's comments here are incredibly insightful, and she approaches it with a really keen eye for the details and the things that would make this work really stand out. And the way she describes the working relationship with Paul Dano also is really fascinating. And so Zoe Kazan's comments are just a wonderful thing to experience in this documentary or this interview. But that's not all, because we also get interviews with Carey Mulligan and also Jake Gyllenhaal. And so Jake Gyllenhaal talks about his initial involvement and how he got involved and how he believed not only in Paul Dano, the artist, but also in the subject matter itself. And also Carey Mulligan, how she got involved with the role, how she approached the role, because it's one of the central aspects of the film is Carey Mulligan and her character. Jeanette is in many ways one of the essential aspects of this film. And so to hear Carey Mulligan's performance, or to hear her comments about her performance and the choices that she made, and working with the director and trying to work out certain issues regarding the character as she was playing her. I think it's just a splendid collection of interviews from these artists, and it's really keen, and it's very observant, and very well put together. And so this is the first supplement, which is called From Script to Screen, again from 2020, from the Criterion Collection. And then we have a second supplement, which is called The World of Wildlife, which is approximately 16 minutes. This is also from 2020, also a Criterion-produced supplement. This time we have, once again, Paul Dano, and he is being interviewed, but this time he's being interviewed in the context of the production aspects of the film, in particular the shooting and capturing the look through the cinematography and the camera work. And so related to that, we have interview comments from the cinematographer Diego Garcia. And then we have also comments about the production design, the look of this, the period look, the simplified look, or not the simplified, but the simple way in which this world is being presented, but also the details and the attention to detail that the crew really put into this. And with that, we have comments from Keen McKenzie, production designer, and he helps to give focus to the inspiration for the look and feel of the film, to capture, as I say, the period look and the period feel, all the way down to the design of the wallpaper and the looks of the buildings and the kind of architecture and geography that they were trying to represent, all the way down to the windows and the window frames, and to try to get those period details exact. And so this is really great. Again, this shows the working relationships that Paul Dano has with other members of his cast, his crew, such as Akeem McKenzie here, and also how he works and how he tries to methodically and patiently achieve the result that he's looking for. And also in that pursuit, he also maintains a sense of a collaborative spirit. This shines through in these interviews with the other crew members. And so this is again another insight into the way in which the filmmaker artist Paul Dano operates. And so this is another fascinating set of interviews. But that's not all, because we also have interviews with Amanda Ford talking about the costumes, because she is the costume designer. And so the choices of fashion that are used in this film, I think, also go a long way in telling the story of these particular characters. I think we see, for example, and I think most directly, the way in which clothing and fashion is used to show us the progression of the character of Jeanette, the Carey Mulligan character, and how she goes from where she starts out in the film, and as certain events take place within the context of the narrative, we see her character change, and we see those changes expressed in many ways. But one of the ways that they're expressed, I think, most visually is in the color and the design of the clothes that she wears at various points in the film. And the comments, therefore, by Amanda Ford really give great context and substance to this approach, this visual, stylistic approach. And it's a splendid set of comments. And so this forms the overall supplement, which is a great one, which is called The World of Wildlife. And again, this is around 16 minutes. But that is not all, because then we have a third supplement, which is called Conversations on Post-Production. According to the Criterion Collection disc, this is from 2019, and this is approximately 26 minutes. And this is Paul Dano talking at a table with Matthew Hannon, who is the editor, and then also David Lang, who is the composer of the music. And so we get a great discussion between director and editor about certain choices that were made in terms of editing. That also involves the structural organization of certain scenes and how that changed over time in order to try to preserve a sense of organic unity that respected the trajectory of the characters. And so there's great discussion about how there were certain structures and certain arrangements of scenes that were changed midway through the editing process in order to create a stronger dynamic. And we also hear the director too talk about his ideas for capturing a certain tone of the film, and how he was thinking about plot versus character, and how certain choices that he made in the editing and the structure of the film really affected plot. This notion of plot versus character, and how in many respects he wanted to establish character and respect character rather than necessarily provide plot devices that would propel the narrative forward. And so we really see here also the way in which the artist is really thinking about this work in terms of this of the editing dynamics. And also in this discussion of the editing and this discussion of structural changes and certain choices with regard to order and structure, we also see some clips of deleted scenes, some outtakes, some alternative takes. And so this also gives further guidance into the artistic mind and the way in which Paul Dano, the director and artist, really operates and works. He always tries to find the best way towards the heart and soul of a particular scene. And while we see him trying to work that stuff out. And I think to see the different versions of a particular scene that could have been in the final film but were not, I think really gives us further insight into how he operates as an artist. And so this is yet another really great, insightful, informative part of this particular set of supplements. But that's not all, because this third supplement also has a second part, which is called The Music of Wildlife. And this is a discussion with David Lang and the composer. And Paul Dano and David Lang are talking about a particular character, not a character, but a particular feel or sound or characterization or sense that the director really wanted to capture in terms of the instruments that he was envisioning being used, the tone, the use or non-use of music, and the way in which they were thinking about how to interweave and to cross-cut and to apply musical tones in a way that would be respectful of the subject matter and also reflective of the subject matter at the same time. And so to hear their conversations about the kinds of musical choices that they made throughout the film, the sparse use of music on the one hand, but also the purposeful use of the music on the other. This is the kind of conversation that is really excellent, because yet again we see Paul Dano, the artist, really trying to think in many dimensions and how to best capture a sense of the sort of musical soundscape, but yet at the same time trying to give the world that he is creating enough room to live and breathe. And so this goes into the choices that were made in terms of applying music, but also not applying music. And I think therefore this conversation, the second part of this Conversations on Post-Production, I think is really quite splendid. So these are the two parts. So part one, the editing of wildlife, and part two, the music of wildlife, which are all included in this third supplement, which is called Conversations on Post-Production. And then we have a fourth supplement, which is, I understand it, a non-Criterion supplement, but this is still a great one. This is from 2018, and this is a discussion recorded at Lincoln Center between Paul Dano and author Richard Ford, and this is moderated by Eric Hines. This is about 44 minutes. And we have here a discussion of them in front of a live audience on stage, and they are talking about the underlying work versus the film adaptation, how there are similarities, but how they are two separate, distinct entities, living, breathing entities, and how Richard Ford envisioned certain aspects of his particular work versus how Paul Dano tried to approach the underlying subject matter, his philosophy when it comes to approaching an already existing work and how to adapt it to screen. This process of adaptation, what is involved with it, what does it mean to be faithful to a work versus what does it mean to try to break off and become more independent from the work. And we also hear Richard Ford's comments here, which I think were very, very generous. And very telling in that he encouraged Paul Dano when they first were talking about the possibility of this film being made. He encouraged him to really make his own film. You know, the book was a book, but he should be encouraged to make his own film. And I thought that was a really quite interesting aspect of this particular conversation. Again, it's 44 minutes, but it goes by so quickly because it's so fascinating, and there are so many nuggets of information that really, again, illuminate and illustrate the way in which the artistic mind works in terms of writing and also in terms of making a film. Fascinating stuff. And so this is the moderated discussion between Paul Dano and Richard Ford from 2018, approximately 44 minutes. And then we have the insert, which is here. It's one of these fold inserts, and so that is very good. On the one side, we have a cast and crew, and then we have pictures from pictures that are depicting a particular aspect of this film. And then the other side, we have the written essay, and this is called What Is and What Isn't by Mark Harris. And I've mentioned the essays in the Criterion releases before, but let me mention this again. This is another great example of a great essay. This is such a well-written, highly informative essay. It goes into specifics in terms of plot and thematic treatment of characters and what it is they go through and certain significant events and how they key into the treatment of the relevant themes and concerns of this particular work. So that is well written and well presented, well thought out. But what I in particular love about Mark Harris's essay here is that he is talking also, he gives a particular part of the, he gives room in the essay for a discussion of Paul Dano, the filmmaker artist. And he talks about filmmaking choices, camera movements, placement of camera, framing, and the way that the story is told. And he makes a reference and he makes comparisons to Edward Yang, to Hirokazu Koreeda, and also to Yasujiro Ozu. And I found these comparisons to be quite profound. And the more I think about it, the more I can also identify similarities between Paul Dano's work in wildlife and certain camera movements and character developments and visual flourishes that help to embellish character developments in the films of Edward Yang and also Yasujiro Ozu and also Hirokazu Koreeda. There is a quiet, profound, a profound sharpness to the clean precision of the camera work that is precise, and it also is very controlled, methodical, and it's very filled with a lot of deep human emotion. It's not clinical. It is clean and precise, but it is also emotional. And I think that is the way in which Mark Harris really tries to make comparisons, very apt ones, I think, with the works of those cinematic masters, Yang, Ozu, Koreeda, and so on. And so I really think that this is a splendid, splendid essay. Highly recommended if you can read it. It's called What Is and What Isn't by Mark Harris. And with that, my friends, this is the release of Wildlife. And I must emphasize again that I think this is a film with quiet emotional power. And I say quiet in a very positive way, because I say quiet and I mean a precise, methodical journey through this human emotional landscape where all the characters are human. They are human beings. Nothing is two-dimensional. Everything is three-dimensionally realized to give each scene its own power, its own complexity, and its own focus on the heart and soul of the character developments of this particular story. This is a very lovely and emotionally powerful work that is very resonant, and it continues to have its power linger on even after the film is over. So this is the film Wildlife. This is spine number 1031 from 2018. Okay, my friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies. Thank you once again, my friends, for your time as always, and cheers.